Hello there, and thanks for checking out my video on the install of the JES wind deflectors for the 2019 Indian Chieftain. My particular ride is a 19 Chieftain Dark Horse, so some models will vary slightly depending on if you have the grommets or if you have to drill to install these wind deflectors. Here's what you will get: your left and right wind deflector, a set of instructions, 2 mounting templates to help you locate and drill your holes, and then the 4 mounting bolts. The instructions leave a little bit to be desired, and I will get into those here shortly, and I will show you what you need to know versus just what they tell you. So let's get to it. So this is my 2019 Chieftain Dark Horse, and down here is where we will be mounting the JES wind deflectors. Now on some of the older bikes, right here you would have a rubber grommet, and all you do is pull that out, and behind it you will find your mounting locations. So on these newer style bikes, when they have the bullet blinkers up here, there's no longer that nice little easy access hole. So what they do is they give you these 2 little templates, and the way these work is you'll take this one with the little short pegs on it, you'll slide it in behind here, and you'll basically got to figure out where it snaps into place, and then the other one will mount to it, and it has the longer pegs, and basically what you get is something like this, and then those 2 small holes are your guides for your drill bit. Now I've tried messing with this for a few times, and I just can't seem to get it seated right, and I'm kind of have an aversion to drilling into my new fairing. So my idea, well, not really my idea, but somebody else's idea, which I'm going to use, is I'm going to take this bolt out, and these 3 bolts off my blinker. And what other people have done is that gives them enough room to pull this little plastic piece out, and then you can get to your bolt holes and mount your trim rings there. And then once you put it all back together, you'll have a nice clean installation with no holes. However, if you want to go with the holes, there's also a post on one of the forums where the guy enlarged his 2 half-inch drill bit holes into 5/8, and then Ace's Hardware sells 2 little plastic plugs that you can put in there, so it kind of cleans up the installation. But since removing those 5 bolts per side doesn't seem like it'll be that big of a deal, I'm going to try that first and then see if that's going to be the easiest way for me. And if not, it'll at least give me more access to get this little plastic template piece in there mounted correctly in case I do end up having to drill. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so you'll see here I got the bolts removed. So these 2 are 4mm, these 2 are 5mm, and then the one on this side is also a 5mm. But then there's this one other bolt that goes in the fairing, this one, it's a 6mm. And you'll see that I can get just enough play, and you should be able to see the 2 holes right there where these are going to mount up. So I'm going to see if I can get my fingers in there to get these in. It's going to be a bit of a tight squeeze. I don't want to pull my fairing out more than this. And then if I can't get that to work, or if I can't get my fingers in there enough to tighten them down, then I'll have to look at doing the drilling method. So this is what it looks like when you have the template put in the correct spot. And you can see there's 2 1/8-inch holes right there, and then you'll drill your 1/8-inch pilot hole. And then once you remove it, the instructions say to drill a 1/2-inch hole using that pilot hole. And you can use an auger bit, pretty much like what I got here. Now the issue that I don't really care for is these bolts are stainless steel. The rest of my bike is black, and when these are mounted in, those heads pretty much mount up flush with the side of the fairing. So what I'm going to do is take and drill those holes out to a 5/8-inch, and then I got these plastic nylon plugs from Ace Hardware, and the reason why I went 5/8 and not 1/2-inch is because the head of the bolt fits right in there like that. So now all I got to do is just auger that hole out a little bit more to a 5/8, insert the bolts, and then tighten them down, and then I can put these plugs over top of them, and it'll give it a little bit more of a cleaner finish. So that's what I'm going to do next. Alright, I got my holes drilled out to 5/8, and here's a little trick that I came up with to hold the washers in place, because you really don't have a whole lot of room to get your fingers up in there. So a little bit of painter's tape, or really any kind of tape, and just right on the edge there, and just enough to grab a hold on once you get it set in there and you get your bolts tightened down. And this is what your finished product should look like. I did remove my turn signals there. You don't really have to. It makes it easier getting to this bolt. Actually, you can't get to this bolt unless you remove it, which gives you enough room to pull this piece of trim out so you can actually get your template in there and make sure everything lines up right. So it's all installed. It's pretty sturdy. This is pretty thick. Looks like it's almost an 1/8 inch thick steel, and looks like it'll do well. So, and then the holes on this bracket, or on this wind deflector, are oblonged this way, so you can slide it in and out and get it up nice and flush with the fairing here. So I'm going to reinstall my blinker and the rest of my bolts on this side and go to the other side. Alright, so here's the finished product, and as you can see, they have a little bit of space there between the lower forks and the reflector there on the side. And then this is with the forks turned all the way over. That's how close they come to my stock bars. And according to JES website, if you have the optional lowers, it will not work. They stick out too far and those will bump into it, but I have no plan of ever doing lowers, so this should work out fine for me. So issues that I ran into, this little piece right here, this is the template you use for drilling. It's not perfect. I mean, it gets you pretty close, but I guess it's a lot better than guessing where you're going to drill. So it works. You just need to hold on to it while you're drilling, make sure it doesn't move around, or maybe tape it down or something, because it doesn't sit in there nice and snug. It's slightly loose. So my recommendation is, once you get it in there, to squeeze these two pieces as much as you can, so that they're basically biting on the fairing, and then that way it doesn't move around as much. Another recommendation is I use blue Loctite on pretty much any bolt that I install. That's going to be something I'm not going to remove much often or at all. So I did use some blue Loctite. And then for the plugs that I used, these 5/8 plugs don't exactly fit flush on the bottom here, and that's because the bolt sticks out pretty much flush with the top of this piece of the fairing, and that's as far as this plug will go in before it bottoms out on this piece. So to me, it looks better than nothing. It looks better than a stainless steel bolt sticking out on a black fairing. And if for whatever reason one of these should pop out, the next time I get one, I'll just shave it down a little bit and maybe Gorilla Glue it on. But those are 65 cents at Ace Hardware a piece for each of those. To JES, I would recommend maybe adding these as an option. You're, like I said, 65 cents a piece times 4 of them. Kick up the price another $2, and you've covered your cost if you bought those in a gross or bulk. So, time to get out and go ride. All right, so I've had a chance to take a bike for a ride now, and I gotta tell you, these things work really well. So the problem I was having before I installed these was, once I had my shield raised all the way up, the air would come up the tank and basically come right up under my chin and just bobble my head around at highway speeds. Now with these JES deflectors installed, the wind actually moves further out to where it's actually blowing more on my legs and on the underside of my arms as I'm holding onto my handlebar. So now instead of coming up my chest, it's coming kind of under my arms and my armpit area. So it's actually aiding in the cooling of the parts that get sweaty on these hot summer days, but it's not removing so much air where I feel like I'm just stuck in a bubble of stale hot air. So you're still getting a decent amount of wind flow. And the other side benefit of that is, when I lower my windshield all the way down, I can now get the air coming off my fairing, but it's not blowing so hard where it's like knocking my glasses off my face or making me tear up. So having these deflectors actually helps to use your windshield more efficiently and more effectively. So now, instead of just running it up or full down, I can actually modify it up or down just a little bit, just to get the right amount of air where I'm not getting too much air and I'm not suffocating. So I highly recommend these deflectors. Like I said, I originally wanted to install them without drilling the holes, That got to be an issue where I couldn't get the fairing far enough away from the forks that I could actually get my fingers in there and put the screws in. I tried having my wife do it. She has smaller hands than I do, but even with me holding the fairing, she just could not get enough leverage inside the fairing to put the mount bolts in. So I went ahead, put it all back together, drilled the holes, put the fillers in like I showed you, and it doesn't really look that bad. I'm not at all stressed about it. And so if it's something that you're not have an aversion to, then I would just recommend drilling the holes. But if you want and you want to do it cleanly, I would recommend pulling the whole fairing off, which is going to be a pain in the butt. But if you're going to do handlebars or something else where you require it, might as well do it at the same time. So that's really all I got to say. JES, good product, really like it, and I look forward to many more miles on it, and hope you guys like it too.